Go looking into its history, and you'll discover a past of unparalleled vitality. 5,000 years ago, a Neolithic culture arose here that was unsurpassed in ancient Europe. The greatest of all these ruins, Skara Brae.
In 1850, a storm hit the coast of Orkney that didn't just blow away sand. It tore open history itself. Beneath the dunes of the Bay of Scale, hidden rooms suddenly emerged. Rooms whose walls were built so precisely, it looked as if someone had cut and fitted them just yesterday. Stone beds, stone shelves, entire houses, but without cement, without iron, without any modern tools. And all of this was built before Stonehenge, even before the Egyptian pyramids. The question wasn't whether people lived here. The real question was, why haven't these walls collapsed even after all this time? And now, 5,000 years later, laser scans have revealed something inside those walls that has forced scientists to rethink the entire story. Settlement here began around 3180 BCE. And then this village quietly survived for more than 600 years. Generation after generation, families tore down their own houses, rebuilt them, thickened the walls, shifted pathways, and each time, new stone went on top of old stone. Slowly, the entire village buried itself in its own layers, as if time sealed it underground. The timeline we have today comes from tiny clues trapped in the soil. Burnt wood, barley grains, animal bones. Radiocarbon dating gave each layer an age, and the result was shocking. These homes were built at a time when most of Europe was still living in huts made of wood and mud, which means Skara Brae wasn't just old, it was architecturally ahead of its time. And here, stone wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. Orkney's ground is packed with layers of old red sandstone that naturally breaks into flat slabs, almost as if it were pre-cut. Wood was extremely scarce, and driftwood from the sea couldn't be trusted. So people didn't limit stone to just the walls. They used it to build beds, shelves, even the structure of their hearths. In other words, what we call a home here was carved entirely out of rock. Even today, the houses stand tightly packed together, as if they were intentionally built shoulder to shoulder. Each home has a low entrance passage, and once inside, upright stone slabs define where people slept, where they stored belongings, and where the fire burned. The entire village followed a single logic, the same layout repeated again and again, slightly adjusted for each family. This wasn't just construction. It was a system, one that prioritized protection over comfort. But even with all this stability, the real danger was always there: the Atlantic Ocean. Hidden behind sand dunes, this village knew that any storm could change everything. And that's exactly what happened. 5,000 years later, after the 1850 storm, the local landowner, William Watt, unknowingly became the village's first modern guardian. What the wind exposed, Watt uncovered even more, clearing sand, removing debris, and revealing strange, box-like stone structures. This didn't happen all at once. It continued in pieces over nearly 20 years. He collected stone tools, pottery, and beads in his house. But this is where the biggest mistake happened. No records were kept of what came from which house, or exactly where anything was found. And with that, the most important story of daily life in the village was lost forever. All these years, the village remained fully exposed to the North Atlantic. Every winter, storms scraped away the walls, and whatever was uncovered slowly washed into the sea. The problem was, what got damaged was later repaired. And that's where the real confusion began. Wherever Watt saw weak walls, he reset stones, filled gaps, and tried to keep the structure standing. But he never documented which stones were ancient and which were Victorian-era repairs. Today, without written records, it's almost impossible to say where Neolithic construction ends and later restoration begins. By the late 1920s, professional excavations finally began, led by V. Gordon Child. Now there were surveyors, notebooks, cameras. For the first time, full maps of houses, paths, and drainage systems were created. But by then, much of the damage had already been done. Most organic evidence had been destroyed during Watt's digging. The very materials that could have told us exact dates and environmental conditions. Today, scientists overlay old hand-drawn maps onto laser scans. Every wall, every stone is re-examined in digital models. But with every measurement, the same question remains. What we're seeing, is it original or was it changed later? Now, the fight isn't just about preservation. It's about separating truth from reconstruction. The land itself explains how these people built. Orkney's red sandstone splits naturally into long, flat slabs. At the old Westerfield quarries, ancient extraction marks can still be seen. Slots cut for wedges, hammer marks, and rocks cracked by fire. Experiments show that stones were first heated with fire, then cooled with water to split them cleanly into layers. This method produced slabs up to 2 meters long, needing very little shaping afterward. But extracting stone is one thing, transporting it is another. Dragging 300-kilogram slabs across marshy ground was no small task. Sledges made from driftwood or whalebone, ropes, and human muscle. Modern tests suggest that 6 to 12 people could move a single slab, which means these houses were not built by individual families. They were community projects tied to seasons and tides. Skara Brae's walls were anything but simple. Each wall had 2 parallel stone faces with rubble, ash, bone, soil, packed tightly between them. This design trapped heat and dampened outside noise. The houses were partially sunk into the ground, keeping indoor temperatures stable year-round. Inside, everything had a fixed place. Stone beds, stone shelves, stone partitions. And in every home, directly facing the entrance, stood a dresser-like structure. Always in the same spot, always in the same orientation. As if the entire village was built from a single blueprint. But there is one house where this fixed furniture is missing. It's called the workshop house. Possibly for shared tasks, possibly for something else. And this difference would later become an important clue for researchers. In 2010, laser scanners were brought to Skara Brae for the first time. Every wall, path, and stone was recorded with millimeter-level accuracy. In 2021, a high-resolution 3D model was released, allowing anyone to virtually walk through the houses and take measurements. Most importantly, repeated scans now show what changes over time. Walls leaning, stones shifting, and the shoreline slowly creeping closer. But the real shock came when scientists began reading the layers inside the walls themselves. Because hidden there was the clue to how these walls have survived so long, and why we may not be able to save them. High-resolution scans revealed that much of what looks like standing walls is actually buried underground. About 20 to 40% of the orthostats were sunk into the soil and tightly packed with smaller stones and wet earth. These walls weren't just standing. They were deliberately anchored into the ground. Laser data exposed the full construction sequence inside the walls. First, slots were cut for the stones. Then the slabs were set upright. After that, they were jammed and compacted. And finally, tied into the rest of the wall structure. In a fixed order every time. This wasn't guesswork. It was a repeatable construction process. The 2021 3D model also confirmed that most stones came from local Westerfield flagstone quarries. No mortar, no metal tools. And yet walls strong enough to last 5,000 years. But that raises another question. How were such heavy slabs lifted into place? And what did the roofs of these houses actually look like? Those answers are still not fully clear. Today, digital archaeology doesn't just track what's breaking. It tries to understand how this place was built. Erosion, shifting stones, leaning walls, all can now be measured over time. And with every new scan, something new about Neolithic engineering comes into focus. The evidence is clear. Skara Brae was not a village that grew by accident. It was a planned, modular system designed specifically for local conditions. Every house, every wall, every stone was part of a larger pattern. And now that every stone has been digitally recorded, this village will keep answering questions for years to come. Questions still hidden beneath the ground. But here's the problem. After that, they were jammed and compacted, and finally tied into the rest of the wall structure. In a fixed order every time. This wasn't guesswork. It was a repeatable construction process. The 2021 3D model also confirmed that most stones came from local Westerfield flagstone quarries, and this difference would later become an important clue for researchers. In 2010, laser scanners were brought to Skara Brae for the first time. Every wall, path, and stone was recorded with millimeter-level accuracy. In 2021, a high-resolution 3D model was released, allowing anyone to virtually walk through the houses and take measurements. Sledges made from driftwood or whalebone, ropes, and human muscle. Modern tests suggest that 6 to 12 people could move a single slab. This wasn't guesswork. It was a repeatable construction process. The 2021 3D model also confirmed that most stones came from local Westerfield flagstone quarries. All can now be measured over time. The same technology that revealed this truth is also showing how fast this place is changing. The same technology that revealed this truth is also showing how fast this place is changing, and how soon we may have to decide whether we can save it or only record it before it's gone.